Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of The Boys' Glorious 5-Year Plan. And I really enjoyed this episode. It did a nice job of balancing character moments with advancing the plot and doing some weird gross out kind of things that are just like, ah shit, that's going on. So, we start off pretty much seeing this weird kind of Soldier Boy music video thing as is watching on, and it's really kind of weird seeing Jensen Ackles do that kind of singing and everything. It was just such a weird music video and a definite kind of like, alright, way to kind of like start off the episode. So we shift over and we see that Butcher is kind of cleaning up his V24 vomit thing as Huey is then like, alright, are we going to tell the boys about this? And Butcher's like, fuck no. And that he's the one in charge since we're doing this shit his way. And we see that that kind of thinking has consequences and very much similarities towards Homelander. Because we definitely get the kind of crystallization in this episode that there really aren't any good guys. The only one that I could really put into perspective as a good guy is Starlight, and she's pretty much in a captive fucking scenario that's gotten even worse as this episode ends. And what I mean by that there's no real good guys here is that even though the boys up until this point have still used fucked up crazy ass ways to take out Soups and everything like that, you kind of had the kind of justification from them that they were doing it to be better than the Soups. But as things kind of go on in this episode, you see that it gets to a point where it's like, if you're fighting the same dirty kind of ways as the people that you're trying to be better than, it's just becoming switching one tyrant for another as Butcher kind of tries to become more kind of in control of the boys. I mean, not that he's trying to be like on the level of Homelander, but with the introduction of this V24 and the things that it kind of produces, you're kind of like, this is going to be doing good. And then we shift over and we get like Homelander doing more stuff on his program and all that, and just being like, all right, well, not his program, but that kind of talk show thing, kind of just talking more about him being persecuted and all that shit. And we then shift and we see that Newman and Edgar are pretty much trying to figure out what to do. Edgar is trying to talk her into announcing FTC fines against his kind of profanity-laden rants to pretty much try and get some kind of level of consequences on Homelander. However, we start seeing in this episode that there are no level of consequences that he gives a shit about. He, even though he really hasn't, he at least gave the appearance and thought that those things would kind of like affect him. However, being his true self and just saying his insane bullshit and people liking him for it has given him the confidence to pretty much do whatever he wants. And Newman is, of course, scared of this. She's like, I don't want to piss this motherfucker off because he's invincible. And I'm like, yeah, you always have to worry when you're trying to create beings with superpowers because you might make one that you can't fucking deal with through any kind of means. Homelander. God. So Butcher, of course, needs to Butcher needs to get to Russia to get the kind of Homelander killing weapon that they've got. So he, of course, meets with Nina and tries to figure out what she needs. They, of course, have their kind of back and forth, which is like, oh shit. It's just like, alright, let's see. I've got government money. Here you go for your troubles and all that kind of stuff. She wants them to go after Sherry. Frenchie's like, that is a non-deal. And Butcher is able to figure out another way to do that, as they then do get their passage to Russia. We also see that Homelander is kind of escalated and starts fucking with Huey and Starlight as they're pretty much talking. He assholishly signs Huey's cast and everything, and pretty much makes starting stuff towards them all and all that. And he's like, oh, I'm just fucking with you guys. It's just like, fuck you. He's like, y'all need to lighten up. And I'm like, oh, being a fucking homicidal asshole who can't get any consequences means that I've got to lighten up because you're gonna do fucking horrendous shit to me if you don't. Fuck you. Okay, and then we get the kind of, oh lord. I mean, I give it to him for, like, aping and ripping the shit out of that fucking Pepsi commercial with, I think it was Kylie Jenner, with A-Train. Like, A-Train, I think there is a certain part of him that does want to help people. However, he has no concept of how to really fucking do that. Because we see that Ashley is now turned on that she likes his new costume change, and we see them go through, and we see that A-Train utilizes his powers to kind of like do the stuff for this scene to be like, hey, drink this A-Train drink shit. It's like, god damn it. I mean, they send up corporate culture very well in this. It's just like, yep, there it is right there. But I'm always like, whenever I see A-Train like use his powers, I'm like, you gonna fucking die, bro? Like, I'm like, you could die, man. I mean, corporate, legal, anybody? No. So we shift over a little bit. We see that Huey's lying to Newman that he's like on painkillers and stuff and trying to heal and all that as they get on this plane. And Frenchie's like, what the fuck is up with this? We actually get a check-in now on Maeve from Starlight, as Maeve has pretty much made it look like she's been on a bender or whatnot, but she's actively training for the day that they actually go to try and take down Homelander. And Starlight's, alright, like, that's pretty cool. And Maeve has no illusions of, like, making it through that fight. She's like, if I can buy anybody a second to take his ass out, that's the only reason I'm doing this kind of training and shit. Like, she's even kind of pissed off. It's like, yeah, I haven't had a drink, man. So, this better be fucking worth it kind of shit. Then we find the boys over in Russia, and we find out that they still need to kill somebody for Nina to make this whole shit work out, and that he wants to use Kimiko, and she's like, I'm not your gun, and he's like, yeah, you fucking are. And they pretty much send her to kill like an oligarch and this whole kind of thing. Frenchie is not liking how this is kind of working out and doesn't like him utilizing her as just a weapon to point at and kill things. Kimiko's already got shit that she hates with her powers anyway, and just utilizing her as an object to achieve your objectives, that's Homelander shit. Like, his hatred for Homelander and Suits is really fucking with him with that kind of thing, because let's see here. Yeah. We also see that Starlight is able to get into contact with Supersonic, and he reiterates that he is going to help her out, making a joke that's like, yeah, it's the reason I'm doing this is because I'm still in love with you. And he's like, no, you're like one of the people that's like helped me out and helped me get to this point. No, that's an asshole thing to do. We then get one of the kind of most important scenes in this episode of all the 7, and they're pretty much dealing with kind of the usual kind of shit, seeing what people need to bring up to the table. We actually see that Black Noir is up and not dead or in a coma and is drawing shit. I don't know if this is the same Black Noir or if this is introducing some kind of like zombie kind of thing, because that was introduced within the comic books, or some kind of clone kind of thing. Like, technically Black Noir did die, but they cloned his ass and just brought this dude up. I don't know if they'll bring it up like that, because clones and zombies are parts of the comic books, but Black Noir being well enough to be present for the meeting and drawing and just doing his own kind of vibing kind of thing, I'm just like, what you doing, man? And he was drawing some kind of cat cartoon thing, and I don't know if that's important, and if it is, let me know in the comments if you got that, because when I watched it, I was like, alright, what's this? But we see that A-Train brings up the Blue Hawk dude, and he of course brings it up as numbers, helping out with the African American demographic and all that. However, we then see that the Deep is pretty much utilized by his girlfriend to bring up like, oh no, that'll make us look weak on crime, and we need law enforcement, and of course bringing up that that's a big portion of Homelander's thing. He then sides with the Deep, and I'm like, why the fuck is his wife in on this shit? Like, Homelander must know that she's like the handler and just pretty much he just utilizes the Deep as a prop. Everybody he pretty much is in contact with utilizes him for their own benefits and controls him, and I think that's part of a reason why he did what he did with Starlight. It does not excuse it, and fuck him for doing it, but you start to understand the stupidity and shit that he's got, because people stronger than him with different levels of varying intelligence manipulate him to do shitty things to shitty people, and then we see A-Train and the Deep have it out in the hallway fighting each other. And, of course, Homelander more goes on the Deep side because he's his redemption project and pretty much tells A-Train to fuck off. A-Train, of course, is pissed, and Supersonic brings him into the whole plot against Homelander. Now, granted, he doesn't go off on him back. He's like, hey, we gonna kill that motherfucker. But he at least does it subtly enough to not completely fuck himself over. That still doesn't work out well enough by the end of this episode. We then get a scene with Butcher and MM, with MM just being like, this is kind of stupid, I still don't know why you fucking brought me in here, and he then regales that, the main thing was that he was a leader, and that he could, get all these people together, and every time that Mallory and him would talk to people within his platoon or whatnot, they would say that MM held them together, and that he's a natural-born leader. Pretty much bullshitting him, and pretty much trying to make it okay that he's using V-24 because he needs to do the shit, and MM will keep everybody else together. Pretty much pawning off the responsibility of being a leader onto somebody else, so that way he can go rogue and do whatever fucking shit that he wants. Ugh. But you start seeing how an important kind of pivotal thing in this episode is that when people set examples and get away with certain shit, it radiates out. It creates ripples, because we see that Butcher's doing this. Huey wants to do the compound V-24. We see that Homelander in the whole 7-bit understands that something's coming from Newman and starts utilizing this language of is your brain being fucked by stupid or whatnot, and degrading Ashley, and Ashley starts using that against somebody else, incidentally enough bringing up another kind of dildo reference, because we get to dildos in a minute. And you just see that Homelander's harsh examples and being such an unrepentant asshole has that effect of making it okay for other people to be unrepentant assholes. And you see Ashley get that and doing that to somebody else. You see the Deep doing that to other people around him and doing it to A-Train. And we see Butcher doing all this stupid shit and starts radiating out to Huey. And then just you see that if you don't have those good role models and those good examples, if you see somebody getting away with certain things, it's going to start kind of affecting you, because other people might think, I can get away with that shit too. Now, granted, they might not start on the level of what Homelander's been doing, of raping and making supervillains and killing people and doing all the shit that he's done. But you then would be like, they start pushing the envelope, they start pushing the boundary, and they start doing this horrendous fucking shit to where it's like, you might try and pick the least evil thing, but what gets to a point where it's like, there are no kind of good guys in this scenario, and you don't want to play by these rules. How the fuck do you even go about that? That was the interesting kind of thing of The Boys, because you're seeing Homelander's kind of descent into just depravity, but then you see Butcher doing the same kind of things to try and combat him. It's like, do you go to those levels in order to win? And if you win, do you win at all in that kind of scenario? Not really. So we then see that Kimiko goes to take out the oligarch. Of course, she's brought in like a call girl, sees the other kind of call girls, and she then utilizes this giant case of dildos and starts pretty much killing everybody. Now granted, she doesn't go after the girls, but it's a really kind of good fight scene because you're like, alright, let's see how this tactical use of dildos go. And they're all themed after the 7. It's just like, alright, that's pretty fucked up. Go for it. And she takes pretty much all of them out, the oligarch, the guards, and all that. However, one of the girls gets a hold of a gun and shoots her in the head, but it doesn't kill her. It heals through, and she feels bad for that. They were afraid of her. And, let's see here. We do get a point where Kimiko then talks with Frenchie afterward, and she wants to be done with this. She doesn't like this. And Frenchie's like, alright, we'll do that. Frenchie's like, fuck Butcher, but he's going to try and stick this one out for MM and Huey, and then after that they'll go to Marseille. And it's like, we'll see how that kind of works out. And we then shift back over to Maeve, Starlight, A-Train, and Supersonic as they are watching this press conference that Newman's giving, and they're thinking, okay, they're going to find Homelander, we'll see how you kind of react to this, but we see that Newman instead unearths all this dirt on Edgar, and that he is the one pretty much going to be arrested and everything, and Homelander's like, yeah, okay, gloats to them, pretty much like, yeah, it's a new dawn of the 7 thing here, and he can pretty much do whatever he wants, and everybody's kind of freaked out about it, and Edgar's like, why the fuck would you do this? And she, of course, is like pretty much doing what she learned from Edgar, except you're helping out this maniacal, insane dick cheese. And we see that then Homelander brings what was requested from Newman, and we learn later that it's V and that she's utilizing it on her daughter to give her superpowers. And it was funny that Homelander referred to it as like the secret recipe for KFC, and that he was glad that Newman chose her own kind, and that I'm thinking, you don't think these people are your kind. You think you're above them. You think you're a god, even though they've got superpowers, because they can't fucking hurt you. But it'll be real interesting to see what happens when some one of them among them can make you bleed, because that's the thing. You never know how Compound V is going to affect people. And the thing is, Ryan, even though untrained, is probably equal or able to surpass you. You know? Like, he might hate his powers, but if he's like, you know what? Fuck this dude. I'm done being afraid of him. If they actively trained his ass to be like Superman, which would be a real kind of twist and an interesting kind of way to kind of go for it, we'll have to see how this kind of works out. Because the way Butcher's got powers from Compound V, he could just pretty much go toe-to-toe with Homelander, because Homelander hasn't really been trained. I mean, he has been trained in like certain kind of instances, but he hasn't been trained in the art of dirty kind of street fighting that Butcher has. So that would be nuts if he just goes that kind of far, loads up on enough Compound V24, and tries to fight his ass and tries to take him out. So there's a lot of routes that can go. Alright, let's see here. We then shift over and see that Butcher is taking the V24, getting his powers up and everything, because they are going to be going in and into the Russian place to try and see if they can get the weapon. Huey wants some of it, and he tells him no, that this is a punishment, not a reward kind of thing, and that he's going to do this, and he's going to be the one that gets punished for it and ends this shit as he can. We then see that Homelander is pretty much gloating over Edgar, but Edgar is still able, in his defeat, to pretty much be like, I'm still going to win. Like, you can gloat all you want, but now there's nobody going to be here to protect you. You're going to fail and destroy this company, and you're never going to be anything more than a bad product. Like, doesn't even call him a bad person, just calls him a bad product. And just seeing Homelander's face and understanding that Edgar can't even give him the satisfaction of like crying or moaning or anything like that, or begging or pleading. He doesn't get any of that. Even Edgar knows how to hit him with that kind of shit and be like, "You're not a god. You're just an idiot." And it's not even an idiot, just a bad product. That's just peak hit, man. Just like, yep, he just finishes his drink, puts it down, and walks out. It's like, there you go, Edgar. Then we, of course, see the scene with Newman giving V to her daughter. We see the boys breaking into the military place, and it's pretty easy. Like, they're trying to figure out the lights and everything like that, and then Butcher's like, fuck this shit, and then just beats the shit out of it, and they go in, and they get into this kind of place. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? They see this hamster named Jamie, and of course, Frenchie's like, oh, it's a little gerbil or whatnot, and then it starts bouncing around. I was like, sweet Jesus, don't piss that thing off. And as they're trying to look around and find things, guards kind of pop in, and we start seeing this firefight go on. The hamster gets loose and fucking just digs into one dude's eye and just fucking, it fucking floats and just goes, ah! It's like, holy shit. Very much Killer Rabbit from Monty Python kind of vibes. It's just burrowing in the dude's head and everything. Like, holy sweet Jesus. And they get to a point where they're kind of like pinned down and everything. Butcher starts using his powers to take out a good chunk of them. But then one of the guys is trying to go after MM. And Huey then does this kind of teleport thing, and his arm that was broken is now healed, goes through the dude's body, and MM is pissed. And I can understand that to a certain level. Huey evidently stole the V-24 from Butcher without his knowledge, but he did save your life. I understand utilizing the soup's powers and everything is a touchy subject and everything, and that MM would be pissed about that, but he did save your life. There needed to be a little bit kind of more balance on that. Let's see here. Butcher then decides to open up this giant tube in the room and be like, what the fuck's in this thing? And we find out it is Soldier Boy. And he like stumbles out naked and everything, and what the fuck's going on? MM's like, he's fucking alive. He can get the justice for his family. And then we see that he's about to do some kind of energy blast, which we hadn't seen that he had the power to do that before at Frenchie, but Kimiko gets him out of the way and then gets blasted through this wall, as then a naked Soldier Boy just runs out and runs away. We then see that Kimiko is not healing from her injuries. It's like, what the fuck's kind of going on here? So evidently this blast can depower a soup, or at least hinder their powers. Let's see. But the thing is, we see that Kimiko is vastly injured, and they're trying to stabilize her in the car. Huey's not really paying attention. He's just looking that he got like super powers and everything and saved his friend. But we see that Kimiko's pretty much dying in the back. MM's pissed off and seeing that like Butcher's not really caring, Huey's not really caring. The only one that's caring is Frenchie, and they don't know how to save Kimiko from what's happening because of how vastly injured she is. And he's just fucking... Now here, if it had built up to this level, like, he was pretty much at this level when Huey saved him. I wouldn't have minded it if it gotten to this level at this point because of their kind of reactions of what's going on. It's just like, Huey, you're better than that. Just because you take this V shit and everything and we're able to save at least MM, try and help save Kimiko. But it also showed how these kind of powers kind of work to a degree. I.e., you take the compound V and Huey is kind of stronger because he could like bust an arm through somebody. He can heal and he can teleport. Butcher can't teleport, but he's resistant to gunfire. He's super strong. We don't know if he can fly or anything, but we'd have to kind of see what goes on with that. Then the episode ends with a really fucked up thing. We see that like Starlight and Homelander are at this kind of premiere kind of, or like this kind of event thing. They're kind of doing the whole kind of PR thing for their relationship. And he's like, hey, let me show you a good-ass view. And then takes Starlight and flies her up to this rooftop, and we see the dead body of Supersonic. And he relates how A-Train betrayed them and said that you're going to stop all this plotting and shit, or that'll be Huey. And he gets her to repeat that, and he tells her to find her own fucking way down as she's crying and just trying to figure out what's going on. And it did look like Supersonic was brutally killed, so this just goes to show that Homelander he's getting closer and closer to, like, pretty much going, I mean, granted, he did kill a woman in broad daylight, but he still had the PR department to kind of hold out on that kind of thing. However, now he's in charge, and if he's pretty much ruling people by fear, they won't do the smartest kind of things all the time. They will try to please him in whatever ways possible. So we'll have to see if he gets how they're going to do this to a certain point. If he's going to start killing people in broad daylight, what he's going to be doing exactly. I mean, granted, he has already done it, but to a point where it doesn't even do PR or whatnot. We do know that they have been renewed for season 4, so I doubt they're going to get to any kind of resolution on Homelander here. But it'll be interesting to see where they stop him if he goes full on just like, I don't give a fuck Homelander, and even just has that he kills people, he rapes people, he doesn't give a shit, he's what other kind of depraved shit he's going to get to and doing, and what could go on. Like, where's his end point that it's going to be before we set up and we finally get that kind of thing. It's really interesting because the comics really don't believe in the idea of superheroes and that they would all suck. And the thing is, I get that, and that's an interesting kind of thing to explore. However, the main reason I'm watching this is to see when Homelander will get his comeuppance. Almost kind of similar to seeing in Game of Thrones, Joffrey get his comeuppance. However, you then go through a lot of the kind of negative stuff of just like, man, these people are doing fucked up, crazy ass shit. However, there are good character moments to see why certain people would do it and how they want to try and be better and what's stopping them from being better. Those are the kind of stuff that I like to focus on. But we'll have to see what kind of works out and what kind of new insane shit Homelander's going to do in the next episode. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.